Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. It is time. It is that time of the year. It is the Olympia time. It is time to go into the video of the year, top 10 Olympia predictions. Will I get it right or will I get it wrong again? Because I think everyone's going to get it wrong. It is so close this year in bikini. There's a lot of stories to go into, a lot of predictions to go into. And of course, we have a contest going on, which will be $1,000 for anyone who can guess the top 10. So if you can guess the top 10 in order by November 3rd in the comments below, you cannot edit the comment. You will get $1,000 if you can get it in order. Last year we did this and no one got it. You know, people were very, very close, but no one ended up getting it. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. I know you guys are really excited. I'm going to do it a little bit different this year, and I'm going to jump right in to number one. Because there's a lot of things to go into this year in terms of the percentages and chances of everyone winning. So it's a lot closer than I think everyone thinks about. I was doing these percentages. This video took me over a month to do, to get ready for it, because I was doing all the breakdowns. I was looking at, okay, who beat who where, what's the scenario, what's the momentum. I mean, there was a lot going on to get this video right. And so with that, let's go ahead and jump right into who I think is going to be number one this year at the Olympia. So no surprises here. Lauralie, that's who I'm thinking is going to be in the number one spot this year. You know, she has momentum of coming off the Arnold. But in terms of the percentages, it's not a huge percentage. So let's go ahead and look at Lauralie closely and go into the breakdown. We're going to break down each athlete in this and go into it. So what is Lauralie's strengths? Okay, so strengths, she's got great glutes, probably the best glutes in bikini. Stage presence, she's awesome on stage. Her posing is always on point. You can look at a picture of Lauralie in one show to the next show and pretty much line her up, and her posing is going to be consistent. Muscularity and pretty muscle. So she has pretty muscle without a ton of striation. She's got very round, very bubbly muscles, full muscles. Now, here's the thing. Where are her weaknesses? Well, her balance is a little bit off, okay? Her balance from her glutes to her upper body is significantly off. That's her one flaw, is that her glutes are too good. So looking at Lauralie's glutes, when you look at her overall glutes, they overpower her upper body just a little bit. Now, looking at her quads a little bit as well. So her balance is her only real issue. And did she correct that this year? Did it get better? We will see. Now, what is the other weaknesses that Lauralie has? Well, she has larger quads, as I just discussed. Looking at her pictures this year, looking at her off season, Lauralie lifts really hard and really heavy. I think, you know, shout out to her and Aldo over in Florida, because they kick ass in the gym. I don't think anyone works out as hard as that chick. She really pushes the weights. And I've known Lauralie for 5 years, 6 years now, and she's always just been a hard worker in the gym. Now, the problem with being such a hard lifter all the time is eventually you're going to get that density of your legs. You're going to keep growing, especially how she does her off seasons. You know, she's notorious in the off season for, you know, having fun, relaxing, eating what she wants. So when you're lifting hard and you're eating heavy, of course, you're going to put on more muscle. Now, looking at her in the beginning of this season and looking at her getting ready for this prep, she looked bigger than she ever was. So is she going to be too big for bikini? That's going to be the question. That'll really be what it comes down to. Or will she be just like she was at the Arnold and win the Arnold? Now, here's a couple other flaws that she has. She has a fluctuating physique. Last year at the Olympia, we saw her with a totally different physique. She looked a little bit flat. She ended up with a lower placing. Everyone thought going into the show that she was going to win. This has happened a couple times with Lauralie. So what is it going to take for Lauralie to come in at 100% and get ready for the Arnold? Is this the year it's going to happen? Or are we going to have a lot of hope for her to come out? And then is she going to come out and be a little bit flat or a little bit too soft or just not there yet? You know, and I think the thing about Lauralie is when these big shows come up, her something happens and her metabolism just starts firing and firing and firing. And it's really, really hard to keep her full. A lot of people have struggled with keeping her full before. So does she have enough experience now? I think she does. I think she has enough experience to not let the Olympia overwhelm her, to let her mind go too far with it. She's won 2 Arnolds now. You know, you can't really get much bigger than that besides the Olympia. So I think that she's ready for it. I think that she's going to be able to see the changes that need to happen. I think her coach has been with her long enough now to actually spend a couple seasons with her to see, okay, she's fading and she needs more carbs, whatever. And I think that she can actually bring a package this year. But the question is going to become, is she going to be, you know, at times, here's another weakness that she has. She has a little bit too ribby at times, right? You could see her ribs a little bit too much at times. To me, that's bothersome, right? When you get a tall competitor or you get any competitor and they're a little bit ribby, it comes off as looking skinny. It comes off as looking flat when they're too ribby, right? Even though she's got muscle everywhere, if you see too many ribs, it just looks a little off. It looks a little kind of skinny. You don't want to look like that in bikini. So that's another issue that she's going to have to fix. But if she comes in full and ready, I don't think that's going to be the issue, because we've seen at times fluctuating on the actual rib cage too. Now, the main thing is going to be, is Lauralie too muscular? Does she bring the right conditioning, stage presence, hair, tan, makeup, posing, all that? It's not going to be an issue. She's going to be just fine on that. Her conditioning is going to be the question. Her muscularity is going to be the question, and her density is going to be the question. The main thing is, are the judges going to reward someone who has glutes that are overdeveloped, they're not balanced to the rest of the physique, and quads that are pushing it past the bikini marker? Does everything else on Lauralie being so good outweigh the overdeveloped glutes and the very dense, very large quads? I don't know. It's worked for her in the past. Will it work for her again? It's very, very possible that it will. So a couple things that I wanted to point out. One, look at the glutes and look at how it overpowers the upper body. When you look at her physique from the front pose, you see the glutes. That's the first thing that you see. It's very wow. It's very cool for Instagram and all that. But we're talking about bikini being the best glutes, that we don't want to be too great from the glutes. You want to be balanced everywhere. So in bikini, we say you want to be good everywhere, not great anywhere. Now with Lauralie, she's great from the glutes. Unfortunately, we want her to be good from the glutes, not great from the glutes, right? So again, quad density, and look at that squaring of the quad. They're a little bit bigger this year than they were last year, at least so far, but she's not fully conditioned yet from what I'm seeing. So are they going to come down in time? We'll see. But strong favorite going into the Olympia, winning the Arnold. Obviously, she's been second at the Olympia twice, so she's a strong favorite. I think it's just a matter of time for Lauralie to win the Olympia. And this year, to me, seems like she's prime, ready to go for it. So it's just a matter of if her conditioning comes in. So that would mean in second place would go to our current champion, Maureen Blanquisco. And why is it that I think that Maureen is going to be in second place this year? Well, a couple of things. One, it was very close last year. Okay. It wasn't like a perfect score last year. And Maureen does have some flaws to her physique. So what are her strengths? Let's go into those first. Her strength, she's got very pretty muscle. I mean, she has probably the prettiest muscle, there is. She has just a glow to her physique, a glow to her muscle. She's got great skin texture. She looks like the trophy that you give out when you win a show, right? You get that trophy, and it's just like bronzed. That's Maureen. Just a perfect skin texture, round, bubbly muscle. She's got no striations. She's got great balance to her physique. I mean, there is very little flaws with her physique in terms of the flow of it. She's not going to get knocked for anything. Look at her striations of her hamstrings. There are none. Look at the roundness of her glutes. Look at the striations of her shoulders. There are none. It's just round, pretty muscle. Now, looking at Maureen, she does have a couple flaws though. Again, the ribs we talked about. Look at how much those ribs protrude. And my main issue with Maureen is her midsection of her physique. That's always the little bit of detail that I don't see from her, is just her core here. Like, look at her core and look at her abs. You don't want to see ab etching on bikini, but you do want to see a little bit of detail on the abs. Unfortunately for her, she doesn't have that much, ab detail. She just has kind of a flat stomach, which is great. It's worked for her obviously very well, but I would like to see a little bit more detail in that actual core for her. And I would like to see less rib cage. The other thing too, is when we look at her glutes and we look at this glute profile from the front, it's a pretty weak glute profile for, the current champion. I want to see a little bit more glute profile from the front. Now, looking at her pictures, I have seen her have more glute profile this year than last year. It looks like she's put a lot of work in. So I am happy about seeing what I've seen in her check-in pictures. She has some really good glute profile from those check-in pictures, but we all know how check-in pictures go. You take 100 of them, you post the best one with the best angle, with the best lighting at the best time after a glute pump, right? Is that going to be the scenario at the Olympia? I don't know. Possibly, right? She's obviously doing it in her check-in pictures. So I do think for her to win again, she's going to need to have more glute profile, especially considering the number one going into it, I think, is going to be Lauralie. Lauralie beat her at the Arnold, right? So we can't discount that. That is probably who everyone's going to have as number one going in, because she just beat her at the Arnold. And Maureen was 100% on point at the Arnold. So Maureen is going to need to have glutes if she's standing next to Lauralie from that front profile, because Lauralie will overpower her completely in that front glute profile if she doesn't. Now, everywhere else, Maureen is exactly where they want her to be. She has great tie-ins without being etched tie-ins. She has great hamstring detail without separation of the hamstring. She doesn't have any striations. It's just good density. But all in all, pretty good. I am curious to see how her 2023 balance is as you see this, because I've seen her check-in pictures and her glutes look a little overpowering at times. So it's just a matter of, okay, finding that perfect balance, because she's really put a lot of work in on those glutes. And I think in her picture, she's just sitting really heavy in her glutes, and that's the reasoning for it. But at the same time, if you're competing against Lauralie, you kind of have to do that. So she's going to have to make those adjustments. So in terms of bikini IQ and how she's posing and how she's really developed her glute profile from the front, I think it's great, but it is a change to the physique, and that's a little bit of a gamble. So who do we got going into third place and why? And this is where things are, I think, are going to start getting controversial. I'm going to do my best to not be biased on this, but I'm trying to remove myself as the coach of two of these girls. Cause last year, obviously I coach Aashlyn and I coach Phoebe. I had two of the girls in the top 10, which was an absolute blessing, but I have to remove myself as the coach when I'm doing these and saying, okay, what's the reality of them placing where, based on the momentum of this year, based on all these factors. And I have to give an unbiased approach, or else I'm not going to have much credibility in this, am I? So let's go ahead and look at who I have in third place. And in third place, obviously, with that buildup, we have Aashlyn Kaltwasser. So why do I have Aashlyn Kaltwasser in third place? Well, let's go ahead and put that out there for a second. She's been third place the last 2 years in a row, right? So it's not going to be a surprise if she gets a third place again. But this year it could be tougher because Lauralie could push everyone down, right? If all the placing stayed the same, Aashlyn would be fourth. If it went from Maureen second, Jennifer third, and Aashlyn would be fourth if Lauralie wins. Lauralie can have a lot to do with this, and how she fluctuates is going to be a kind of one of the factors in this. So will Aashlyn beat Lauralie again, or will Lauralie come and win the whole show and push everyone down? Who knows, right? This is where I have it right now. So looking at Aashlyn, of course, the main thing with Aashlyn is she's balanced. And that's the thing about Aashlyn, is she always brings a very consistent package. Try to find a show where she's significantly off, where she's significantly flat, where she's significantly soft, where everything went bad, right? Even her worst show, she's still pretty consistent, right? That's the one thing about Aashlyn. She's very consistent. Her conditioning, we already know what to expect from her. We've seen her compete over 40 times. She's always very, very consistent. You don't have this huge fluctuating physique. That's one of the things about her, right? Her balance is also amazing. Now, here's the thing. Aashlyn is a petite person. She's very petite structure. That's one of her weaknesses, because she can get outsized from people like Lauralie, like Jennifer, who have just a bigger structural physique, right? But in bikini, they reward all physique. So it just comes down to Aashlyn working with what she's got. And what she's got is balance. She's got conditioning. She's got that athletic bikini shape. I think when you look at bikini and what we're trying to look for in terms of the actual criteria, balance, no striations, full muscle bellies without overpowering muscle, I think that she hits all the targets and all the criteria. And I think that there's actually a chance for her to win this year too. And I'm going to go into those percentages because I think that people don't realize how close this Olympia is. And it is going to be a crazy, crazy Olympia. A lot of things can happen at this Olympia. This is my top 10 based on how it's been judged this year. But the Olympia always sets the standard for how they're going to judge shows throughout the year. It is very possible that they say, hey, girls, you're getting too big. We're going to pick someone who's still really muscular like Aashlyn, but is a little bit more streamlined. We don't want bikini going to the next level and always pushing it again. And in that scenario, it mixes up the whole top 10, right? You might see people like Rihanna jumping in there. You might see Issa moving up a little higher, the more petite girls moving up. Or you could see them going just for powerful physiques. And you have Lauralie's and you have the Amy's and Jennifer's, right? The more the Darajas, the bigger physiques, right? So what are they going to do at this year's Olympia? And that's why this Olympia is so crazy. And when I break down the percentages, I think you guys are going to see how crazy it is. So looking at Aashlyn, here's the thing about Aashlyn. She has a great glute profile from the front. And I don't think enough people talk about how good she is from the front, because from the front, she has exactly what they're looking for. She doesn't have an X frame. She's got a great hourglass shape. She has a great glute profile. She's got probably one of the better glute profiles in bikini. When we talk about balance and everything, right? Now, if you talk about just power, Lauralie has the best glute profile from the front, right? But that's just power. That's the biggest glute profile, not the best. I would say Aashlyn's very close to the best, if not the best, in that front glute profile, because you're seeing the nice roundness of the hamstring, still seeing the glute, and you're seeing quads that aren't dense and overpowering, still muscular. And this year, they're going to be a little bit more muscular. One of the things that she's been working on, she's actually taken a little bit of an off season for Aashlyn. She loves to compete. She's been working really hard. She's built up her shoulders. She's built up her quads a little bit. You're going to see some improvements from Aashlyn, and she is going to be, more on the petite side structurally, but she's not going to be someone you look at and be like, man, she needs more muscle. Absolutely not. She's looking really, really muscular right now. I'm super happy with her. It looks like she's going to be about 2 pounds up from Olympia last year. So that's a lot on an advanced physique like her. When we talk about glutes from the back, she is, a lot of times judges are saying, she's got the best glutes from the back. She can't be beat from the back. It just comes down to little factors in terms of shoulders from the front or things like that. So from the back, again, full tie-ins without being etched tie-ins, full round glutes, full glutes up top without being squared off glutes, great glute to waist ratio, right? So I think that with how I'm seeing things, I think that she can get third, but I also think that it's a possibility that she could even win the show. And how awesome would that be? This is her 10-year anniversary from her winning her first Olympia. What a story that would be, that she comes back and wins it 10 years later. I don't think it would surprise anyone. And the way things have been going this year, I think there's a strong possibility. Okay, so let's go into the percentages and why I think that this year's Olympia is going to be so crazy, because here's the thing. I was breaking down these percentages and I was like, it can't be this crazy. When I first saw, I was doing the percentages, I was like, okay, Lauralie has like a 50-50 shot to win the Olympia, right? But I was like, no, that can't be possible, because all these other girls can potentially win it. They can upset it. They could potentially win this thing. It can't be 50-50. So I started breaking it down, and then I started breaking down, okay, who beats who, who's beat who when, what's momentum like this year? What's the physique flaws? Like, what are the judges being saying? The judges that I know they're going to be there. And so I started doing all this math, and it took me forever to do this. And it is way closer than we think in terms of the percentages. So let's go ahead and break into the percentages. And I think this is where everyone's going to go, wow, this is going to be a crazy Olympia. So here's what we have in terms of the percentages. And this is, obviously rough math, what I've done. And this is my top 10. I'm just giving you the list right here of where I think everyone is going to be placing. And I'm going to go into the rest of these physiques in a minute here and go into why. So Lauralie, I think, is at a 16% chance of winning, which is a very low percentage, but she's the favorite, because you have to still give Maureen 15%. You have to give Aashlyn 13%. I have Jennifer at 14%, which is 1% higher than Aashlyn, because, and I'm going to go into her physique next, because she has a fluctuating physique. Now, you also have Phoebe and you have Amy, 11 and 12%. Amy, 1% higher than Phoebe, even though I have Phoebe at 5th place, again, because of the fluctuating physique, right? So where are these girls gonna place? And also the percentages have to go to the variable. Let's remember, yes, we have who we think is going to be the top 6, the top 7, pretty solid number there. I think that those girls, a lot of people are going to agree that's the top 6, top 7. But you got to remember, Angelica, the year that she won the Olympia, the year before she got 16th place. And if you guys know how judging works, they stopped judging at 16th place. So everyone is 16th place after top 15. Everyone just gets 16 places, right? So you can kind of tell who's where based on the call out, but everyone's 16th place. And Angelica was in that sea of 16, we call it, and won the next year. So the variable has to be 10%. What if someone wins, like Aashlyn comes in, or Daraja shows up 100%, or they decide to give it back to Issa, or, something crazy happens and Rihanna or Ivana wins, right? There's all that. That's definitely a possibility. And I'm going to have them in the variables of 10%. But that being said, it is a crazy Olympia. And here's the thing. When we have a dry climate out in Nevada, we have Aashlyn, we have Jennifer, we have Amy out here. We have quite a few athletes that are out here too on that list. They're in Las Vegas, right? They're going to a more humid climate. Phoebe's out here too. They're going to a more humid climate. That is going to put an advantage to Lauralie, to Aashlyn, who are already from that climate. They're already not, their humidity is not changing. Their body's not going to need to adjust. We don't need to adjust based on if their body just starts soaking up water from that very, very humid place. So that's going to throw the percentages even more, right? Maybe throw another percent at Lauralie. Maybe take a percentage away from a Phoebe, from a Amy, from a Aashlyn, because of that disadvantage, right? So those are all factors that we don't think about that really go into, because you need to look perfect the day of the show. Everything you did before that really doesn't matter. It's just the day of the show. How do you look? So let's go ahead and go into Jennifer, who I have in 4th place, but I do think that there's a strong possibility that I'm wrong here. So let's go into the reasons of why first. Okay. So here's going to be the main reason why I have Jennifer in 4th place this year. One, okay, she got 3rd next to Lauralie and next to Maureen at the Arnold, right? So the setting's kind of somewhere in that 3rd, 4th place marker already. Yeah. And everyone's going to say, well, she's already beat Aashlyn at the Arnold. Why do you think that she's going to beat her? Well, here's the thing. Jennifer last year came in a little too tight at the Olympia. Actually, probably pretty far too tight, to be honest. If you look at her Olympia last year, she has hamstring separation. Her shoulders were really capped off. It was a different Jennifer, and it throws off her balance of her physique. We don't just talk about muscularity balance, but we talk about body fat distribution and balance. She just stores a little bit more body fat on her lower body than she does on her upper body. Her upper body gets way more shredded than her lower body, so she's going to have to pose different. So Jennifer is still in the figuring it out phase from last year. Last year, she changed her posing up and she changed her conditioning up. Then she came to the Arnold. She changed things up a little bit again, but she was still really tight, right? So she's still trying to figure out, okay, do I bring back my Olympia physique that I won with? Or is that now not lean enough for today's standard? As we know, things change, right? So that's why I'm giving her a 4th place, because she still has to figure it out. And she hasn't done a lot of shows in terms of being able to do that. You know, she did the Arnold, and that's pretty much it. She's stepping on stage at the Olympia again. I think if she did 2 shows, 3 shows before the Olympia, that I would probably have placed her 3rd or maybe even 2nd, because she would have had a better marker to figure it out. But she's going into the Olympia a little bit blind, stuck in between those physiques. It's a pretty big range. Okay. Are you going to be the Jennifer that's really, really lean like last year? Are you going to change your posing up like you did last year? Are you going to go back to your posing that won you the Olympia? Are you going to go back to the conditioning that won you the Olympia? What are you going to do? And I think that's something at their camp they're going to be trying to figure out. That is a very hard situation to go into, because safe bet, 2nd was pretty good, right? Let's bring what we did last year. Maybe that can move up. Riskier bet, let's go back to our Olympia look that won. Is that enough now, or is that not enough? You haven't tried it. That's the problem, right? So because of that, there's going to be a little bit of gambling that has to go on in her camp with her posing, with her conditioning. What is she going to bring? Does she come back and win with a perfect score? Or does she get pushed down to 4th, 5th, 6th, even 6th place because she tries something new? If she tries to go for it in a different way, or she tries to go back to her last conditioning that won her, is it enough? Right? So that's where you run into a real issue with Jennifer. And it's a tough situation. Me personally, I like Jennifer, who's a little bit softer. I liked her look at where she won the Olympia. I liked her posing where she won the Olympia. I think that's the way to go, but it's a tough scenario too. You can't just say that's the way to go. Bikini has changed, as we can tell. And when you look at people like Issa, who looks very similar to what she did when she won the Olympia, is no longer a winning physique, right? So it's tough because things change all the time. So I could see her being stressed in that camp. Now, let's go ahead and look at who's in 5th place. But one thing I want to give, shout out to Jennifer. One, amazing Olympia champion, like one of the best Olympia champions. I think her, Aashlyn, and Angelica were just such great champions and promoters of the sport. I think that they're just awesome. They did a great thing for the Olympia. I mean, she was at a posing seminar with us last week, and like she's always at these seminars and putting her work in, just like Aashlyn is. And these girls really help the sport. So thank you, Jennifer, for that. But a couple of things also I want to go into with her physique. Very pretty muscle, very glowy physique. Some of the things that she has, no striations. Last year she did in her shoulders. Great structure. You know, structurally, there's very, very hard to beat. Wide hips, small waistline from the back, good clavicle base, really strong clavicle base, hourglass shape without being an X frame, pretty muscle, right? So the thing is, she does have really dense quads. When she leans out, you can really see it. You're seeing some vertical hamstring separation. You're seeing some density in her overall quads, even some like orange peel texture towards parts of the quad. She was so lean last year. So that's going to be some things that hurt her in the density of the quad. So what does she bring? I think she does need to bring a softer leg for her to be where she needs to be, and better balance. I think that's going to be the thing. So can she bring it? Does she have enough reps in this year to be able to do that? It's going to be tough. That's going to be a tough one because she hasn't got on stage that much this year. Now, 5th place, this is the one you're going to say, okay, Adam, yeah, you're a little weak with this one, and it's because one of them's your athlete, but I'm going to go into it. So let's go ahead and go into 5th place here. All right, we have a battle in 5th place. We have a battle between Amy and we have a battle between Phoebe. Okay, a lot of you are going to say, all right, that's definitely biased, Adam, because you coach Phoebe, right? But let's go ahead and go into the reasoning why. Give me a second here with Amy. Now, Amy, great momentum this year. So let's go ahead and go into the where Phoebe wins. Phoebe wins because she has a better hourglass shape. Phoebe does not have an X frame. She's got a great hourglass shape, great clavicle base. She doesn't have crazy density. She has pretty muscle. Like she doesn't have like the detail in the quads like you see in the density with Amy. Look at the difference of the quads when you look at this quad here, getting a little bit of even that orange peel quad with those dents in the leg, those like little striations within the muscles, right? That's the thing I always say about Amy is that her quads are too dense and at times they're too big. Now, she has spent a lot of time in the last year not training her quads. So are her quads going to be a little bit smaller? I don't know. But the thing that I'm seeing, this was at Legions, this was very recently. Look at all that crazy detail. I could see a full hamstring separation. I could see the full tendon connecting to the knee. I could see full quad separation. I could see separation all the way through the glutes here. I could see a full round quad here. That's a lot of density for someone winning an Olympia. And I think that's still the thing that is her weakness. If she can fix this and make this a prettier muscle, I think that's going to help. Now, she has changed her posing. Amy did have more of an X-frame posing, so she's switched her posing to be more like this, which is more of that hourglass shape, not showing so much of that X-frame, which is a huge benefit, but the quad is still there. That's going to be the thing. I like how her upper body looks now. It is not as X-framed. It's not as crazy. It's more hourglassy, and that's what they wanted from her. And so I do think that that's a good thing, but you got to look at the glute and look at the balance between the upper lower body on that glute, and you got to look at this detail here. And if you only looked at this part of her physique, you would probably say, oh, it's probably a little bit too much for Bikini because the density, the detail, and the power of the glute is overpowering a little bit to the upper body. When you look at Phoebe, you don't see those things, right? You don't see the overpowering glute to the upper body. You just look at it looking at a little balance. Now, here's the thing. When you look at Phoebe last year, I will say she's a tiny bit flat from last year. If I would have done this again, she got 7th place last year. If I would have done this again with her, I would have had her maybe 1 or 2 pounds heavier. I think she could have been just a little bit fuller going into the Olympia last year. And I think that that's the only part we messed up on, is just a tiny bit more fullness. And you can see it a little bit from the back as well. So we have 2 variables. Last year, they wanted Phoebe to be a little bit more muscular, a little bit fuller, which I totally agree with because she's taller. She is absolutely more muscular and absolutely fuller. And we're not going to shoot for the conditioning again this year. We had to shoot for it last year too. That was the other part of it, because she didn't nail her conditioning at the Arnold. We wanted to bring a better conditioning. Like, hey, here's our conditioning. Here's our tie-ins. What do you got for us now? Right. 7th place. And she worked her way up to the Olympia. She started off like, it looked like she was probably 11th or 12th at that second call out. And then she worked her way up, worked her way back to the callbacks. I think if she would have ended up in that top 8 callback originally, which is going to be more likely this year since she ended up there last year, that she probably could have worked her way up to 6 and maybe even pushing out Amy last year. Had she have been fuller, would it have changed things? I don't know. I think she probably could have placed as high as she could have last year, but it could have been really close, maybe 1 spot higher if she was a couple pounds heavier. Going into this show, she's competing this weekend, and she's actually up 3 or 2.5 kilograms right now from that show. I think at the Olympia, she's going to be 1 to 2 kilos above her last year's weight, fuller with more muscle. And I think that there's a couple of the errors we made last year we don't need to make again this year. So that's where I think that she climbs ahead of Amy. Now, looking at the back pose, here's the thing with Amy. Great from the front, awesome detail, but the glutes could be a tiny bit sharper, just a little bit. I looked at a few different pictures of Amy, and I'm always seeing just a little bit sharper in the glutes. I think that she could have been just, if you look here at the body fat on the glutes towards the middle of the glute, I think she could be a little bit harder. Now, with Phoebe, she could be a little fuller and a tiny bit softer. And we're going to definitely nail that this year. I don't see any issue with that. With how much muscle she has now, we're going to be able to really push it. We're not even going to have to fill out as much for her to be better than this from last year. That's the thing. And that's why I think it's going to be very, very close between these two. And that is a tough one to decide, based on Amy's flaws and based on Phoebe's improvements that I'm visually seeing, because I saw both of these girls recently. I do think that it's very possible that Phoebe edges her out. I don't think it'll be a perfect score when she edges her out. I think it's going to be about a 1-point decision between those two for the 5th and 6th. Now, again, I do have Amy as a higher percentage of winning the entire show, though. Let's go ahead and go back into that. I have Amy at 1% higher of winning because, remember, she's won, I think, 5 shows this year, winning big shows too with a ton of momentum. Do they like her enough? Is that the new Bikini standard? I don't know. So going into now, Amy as 6th place, we're going to go into who I think is going to be 7th place, which is going to be Aashlyn. Welcome back to the top 10, Aashlyn. I think last year she was just a little bit off, and that's, it happens from time to time. It's hard to nail your physique every single time, but Aashlyn was a top 10 athlete before. Her being back in the top 10 is going to be no surprise. She's definitely improved since she's been in the top 10. It's been 2 years. Of course, she's improved. That's how it should go, right? That's how it should be, especially someone who's staying consistent as Aashlyn. So let's go ahead and go into Aashlyn and look at her overall strengths and weaknesses. So the thing about Aashlyn is she's very muscular. She's shorter, but she's very muscular, has very round, bubbly muscles. One other thing about Aashlyn is her skin glow and texture. Very, very good texture to her skin. Look at her skin tone of her physique. It is kind of glowing. It has that perfect color to it, right? It's a good glowing physique. She looks bronze like the statue, like we talked about with Maureen. Very good flow to her physique without being overly striated anywhere. So the thing about Aashlyn, tiny, tiny waist from the profile. Important that you hear me say from the profile, because the thing is, from Aashlyn, from the front, she actually has a wider waist from the front. She's a little bit more boxy from the front, a little bit straight up and down from the front. When she comes back and does that front walk, when they walk her back to the front, that's the only time you can see it, but it is there. So that's going to be the thing. Has she gotten better than that? Is she more hourglassy from the front now, or is she still pretty straight up and down on her waistline from the front? They only see it for a split second. And if you're a really good bikini competitor, you're not going to see much of it at all. Now, here's the thing about Aashlyn as well. From the back, she's also straight up and down. Now, her hair going outside on the edges of her back is strategically there to hide that. But if you look at her from the back, there's not a lot of hourglass shape from the back. And that's where Aashlyn gets a little bit hit. She needs to have a little bit more width up top to have that perfect hourglass shape, because on the lower body, there's really not a lot of weaknesses here from the lower body. But on the upper body, it's straight up and down. There's not a great hourglass shape. Great shoulder width, great clavicle width, great round muscle bellies. But the overall hourglass shape, it's really not there. So looking at her from the back, the other weakness that she has is she has a really deep V on her adductors, right? So when you look at these adductors and how she's posing, you're seeing some vertical hamstring separation. You're seeing a deep V and a deep hardness to her adductors there. And you want to make sure that that comes in really soft. When you look at someone like a Lauralie, she's not going to have that deep V on those adductors, right? You're not going to see that on these top three girls. It's going to be a soft just hint of adductor separation, but not a deep V. And that's what she has. And when you get next to these top girls, that's where you're going to get hurt just a little bit. So those are the couple things that she has that are going against her. And the other thing is her shoulders do get really, really capped off, like very hard capping to the shoulders. Pretty much like her capping to her shoulders gets like women's physique lean. It is a shredded. Look at how hard and dense that capping is between her shoulder and her tricep. Everyone has their thing. Some people lean out more up top than down low. She really leans out on her shoulders and arms, and they get crispy tight. So that's one of the things that hurts her too. It starts taking away from the pretty muscle on that shoulder when it gets so dense and so grainy. So if they can control that, she can potentially move even up. And I have her as in the variable of one of those 10% that could win the Olympia, that just surprises everyone. She's good enough for that if she can fix those things. Is she going to fix those things? I don't know. It seems like a pretty tough fix. Now, going into the 8th place, who am I missing right now? And I think this one's going to be a little bit of a surprise to everyone. I was like, who are we missing? Well, Daraja wasn't in there. Issa wasn't in there, right? Who do you have in 8th place, and why are they slipping so low, right? 8th place, I have Daraja Hill. And why am I hating on Daraja, right? That's the other thing. Why are you hating on Daraja? It's not that I'm hating on Daraja. I love Daraja as a person. I've known her since she was an amateur. I think that she's an incredible physique. But here's the thing. She has a fluctuating physique. She's had a couple shows this year. She has not nailed her conditioning once this year, right? When we talk about fullness to her muscles, we talk about her shape, her wide clavicle width. We talk about her overall flow of her muscle. Yeah, it's great. The problem is Daraja's conditioning has been off at more shows than it's been on. And it's just the reality of things. She showed up at the Olympia, but remember, a week prior to Olympia, she was too soft and got beat by Phoebe just a week prior at that show in Texas. Now she's going to Olympia. She got, I think, 3rd place the other day, or was it 4th place the other day at a show where she got beat by women who weren't in the top 10 of the Olympia. She just has her conditioning. When you look at her glutes, when you look at the glutes specifically, you could see them glutes like they're touching around the suit. And that is a big conditioning issue. She comes in just a little bit soft. Now, the other thing about the other thing about Daraja is her waistline is not small from the front. From the side, it's not bad, and her shape offsets it. But when she walks to the front, like we talked about Aashlyn being a little bit wider from the front, Daraja is probably the widest from the front, but she also has the widest clavicle base. When you get her next to an Aashlyn, when you get her next to a Lauralie or someone with a really tapered waistline, she's going to look really, really boxy. And that's going to be the thing that I think the judges will see if her conditioning isn't 100%. Now, if Daraja nails her conditioning and she's 100%, can she be top 4 again? I think she can, if they don't walk them too much and she doesn't get her waistline exposed, but next to someone like an Aashlyn or a Lauralie, depending on where she's at on the spot. So Can she win the Olympia? Absolutely. She's in that 10% variable marker. Could I be totally wrong? If she shows up in shape, she could definitely move up the ranks. I could see her going all the way as high as 4th place again if she's just showing up in shape, and she could potentially surprise all of us and win the Olympia, but she's got to show up in shape. The other things about her is her leg balance. Her legs, when you look at her walking from the front, they are a little bit smaller than her upper body. Her balance is just a little bit off. When she poses really, really well. You don't really see that huge difference in balance, but when she walks back, you do see her legs being a little bit smaller. So that's going to be the thing. When you have smaller legs and you have a wider waistline, it really throws things off when you're getting next to the best structures in the world. So who's next, right? Who do we got in 9th place? Well, unfortunately, I have it as Issa in 9th place. I hope I'm wrong about that. I really love Issa, and I think that she's an amazing competitor, and she really loves the sport. I don't know if anyone loves the sport like as much as her or Ashley. I mean, she just, these girls like live by it, and she's one of them. So I hope that I'm wrong here, but based on how things are going this year for her, based on how she's looking, based on how things have been changing with the standards of bikini, I don't think she's going to be placing that high. I think she's going to slip a little bit. And let's go ahead and go into it. So here's her physique. This is her. Now remember, this is her best physique of the year. This is her winning physique at Clash. Look at how crazy detailed her hamstrings are, right? They don't get much more dense and much more separated than that. That is a lot of separation. Vertical separation. You could see the piano string hamstring cords in those hamstrings. Look at that adductor all the way down, detailed all the way down. Look at the density of her quads. It is crazy, crazy dense. Now, I understand why they're doing this. They are doing this because they want to get her to have tie-ins. She needs tie-ins. She can't keep showing up to shows without tie-ins. Unfortunately for her is that she has to get so lean for her tie-ins to show up, then everything else starts getting crazy, crazy lean, and it throws things off. You need full crispy tie-ins with round, full hamstrings without detail in the hamstrings. You can't just go for tie-ins. You have to have both, right? So if your hamstrings are too detailed, that is going to hurt you more than having tie-ins that show up, right? So if you're ever got to choose between the two, choose for the hamstring fullness and choose for less tie-ins, because these hamstrings being that tight are going to knock you down 7 days out of 7 days. Now, the other thing that's hurting Issa is she has a really crazy X-frame. As we talked about this year a lot, all you hear is hourglass, hourglass shape, hourglass shape, hourglass shape. The thing is, Issa doesn't have an hourglass shape. She has an X-frame. Really, if you look at Issa's physique, with her not having crazy glutes and her having this crazy X-frame, she's really like a mini figure competitor. She just doesn't have as much muscle as a figure competitor, but her actual structure, the X-frame, the small waist, the glutes that aren't super full, the hard detail of her legs, she's actually like a mini figure competitor. So she's kind of stuck in between, like figure, X-frame, figure structure with the wide clavicle base, figure without having the glutes, but not enough muscle for even bikini right now, right? She needs more muscle in bikini. She needs way more muscle to do figure. So that's obviously not the option. But if you look at her structurally, she does kind of fall into that kind of in-between category, right? Now, this was the best physique a couple years back, but things have changed. Now they want a lot of tie-ins. Now they want an hourglass shape. So things have kind of worked against her, unfortunately, how bikini's evolved. It's kind of gone directly against her. Instead of that X-frame that was super impressive, now they said hourglass. Now they want tie-ins. Issa doesn't have them, right? It's an unfortunate scenario, but bikini's always going to evolve, and it's changed a lot in the last few years since she's won. And I think that it's just changed just too much, unless they bring it back down a little bit for her to get another Olympia win, unfortunately. And I hope I'm wrong about that. Obviously I'm great friends with her coach, talk to him like daily, but the reality is like right now with what they're looking for in bikini, that's just not it. And I won't even be surprised if she's knocked out of the top 10 based on that, because there are people who fit that hourglass shape, that more roundness to their physique with better tie-ins, quite a bit more than Issa, right? But Issa is so impressive from the front. She is a former Miss Olympia. But I do think there's an argument for others to actually beat her. If you look at just the criteria of what they're picking now, there's quite a few people that can slip past her. Will she be able to hold a top 10 spot this year? I really hope so. And I really hope that I'm wrong about her being in 9th place. I actually do. Now in 10th place, I have Romina. I don't have any pictures of Romina here. But going back to the percentages, why wouldn't I have Romina in 10th place? She was 10th place last year. She's kind of like someone who's not talked about, but is like a real threat. And I think that she could be a top 10er, no problem again this year, maybe even passing Issa this year, unfortunately, and maybe passing Daraja if Daraja doesn't show up 100% in shape. So now here's the other people that we didn't talk about that are potentials in that top 10. Well, we have Jourdain. We have Rihanna, we have Ivana and Eureka. I think that Ivana is a strong possibility to squeeze someone out. The problem with Ivana is sometimes she comes in just a little bit too tight, but everywhere else, she's exactly where she needs to be. How tight is she going to be at the Olympia? Do they want that look from her? Let's figure that out. Now, Jourdain is a little bit unknown too, because she only competed once this year. She did great. She looked awesome at that show, but we don't really know how she's going to stack up against this top competition. She was a top 10 athlete before, so it'll be no surprise if she gets back into the top 10 again. And that's just, she's definitely within her capabilities, but will she get there based on how things are going so far this year? I don't know. And that's why I have her outside of the top 10. And then Rihanna, I think Rihanna in a couple years, we could be talking about being one of the next Miss Olympia champions. Not this year, though. Okay, looking at how she looked, she was a little bit soft at her last show. She's just not muscular enough. She's very, very petite, and she's just still being overpowered by quite a big margin. But structurally, there's pretty much no one that hangs with her structurally. She is a crazy, crazy structure, pretty muscle, great flow to her physique, just not there yet. But I think, come back to this video in a couple years. We're going to be talking about her being a potential for maybe being 16% to win in a couple years. I do think it's going to take her 2 solid years, though. I do, unfortunately. But yeah, so that is it, guys. What do you think? That is what I got for my top 10. Remember, in the contest, top 10, pick them in the comment section. If you get top 10, I'll send you $1,000. Now, this video is pretty much done, but I'm going to go, because we're live, I'm going to go into the Q&A. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you don't want to watch the Q&A, go ahead and tune out now. Make sure to like and subscribe. Keep this channel going. I enjoy doing it. This one took me a lot of work. Let me know about your questions now, guys, in the comments, and I will speak to those live if there are any. Maybe I covered it so well there aren't any contests. So, all right, questions. I'm reading through your comments now. A lot of people seem to agree that Lauralie is going to be winning. I see the chap this year. Let's see. A little people talk about Phoebe too. All right. Doesn't look like there's any questions coming in, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in as always, and talk to you next time.